Welcome to the ACR webinar on maintaining and managing stock levels and costs within ACR. Today we're going to cover a few utilities that will assist with doing manual stock adjustments and cost adjustments, as well as how to review stock levels and cost levels without needing to use the product maintenance screens. We won't be covering stock receipting or stock take. They are covered in separate webinars, but we will be having a look at other ways of doing similar functions. What we're going to cover today. Today we're going to cover using the stock inquiry and product inquiry. We're going to cover stock adjustments. This includes stock adjustments of serial tracked items, which are handled slightly different within the system. We're going to have a look at performing manual cost adjustments. And we're going to look at using the next price/cost manipulator to do bulk cost changes on products, which does have a flow-on effect to price, but it's a way of we'll look at it as a way of being able to do bulk cost updates. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move into ACR. So within ACR, it's easy enough to open product file maintenance and check a product stock on hand or the cost. You could also run reports like the stock holding report that'll show you what your current stock on hand and quantity and cost is. But what happens when you just want to adjust these, or how can you adjust the cost instead of the stock on hand? How can you do it for a number of products rather than just having to go into each product individually? The utilities we're going to cover today can be used to review this information and to make the adjustments. So this webinar is going to look at a few utilities and how they work to give you a better understanding of what can be done in your system. So as we covered, we're going to be looking at we're going to break this down into a couple of sections. One is viewing product information quickly within ACR, and that's going to be covered by the stock inquiry and product inquiry. We're going to look at how to make adjustments to stock levels. That's going to be covered by stock adjustment and stock adjustment serial tracked items. We're going to have a look at making cost adjustments using the cost adjustment utility. And then, as I said, using the next price/cost manipulator to do bulk updates of costs for products. So we're going to start by having a look at a product stock on hand and cost. So while it's possible to have a look at all this information in product inquiry, and we'll open this up, have a quick look. You can bring up a product. We can have a look at the stock area and see what the stock on hand is. We can have a look at a cost and see what the cost is. But this can be cumbersome because you have to have access to a whole lot more information and potentially have edit access that you may not want some people having. So ACR have developed a few alternative ways of being able to see this information that can actually be a bit more useful to staff, especially point of sale staff who are talking with customers and want to be able to have a look at information quickly. So one of the screens that we've got is the stock inquiry screen and the product inquiry. We're going to start looking at the stock inquiry though. So the stock inquiry screen is a useful screen to allow sales staff to be able to see information about a product really quickly on a single screen without having to click through. You can look up a product either by scanning the barcode in, entering a product ID, or performing a regular search as you would normally. And the screen shows you a certain lot of information. So obviously you have your product identified at the top. You've then got your supplier name, number, SKU, what their order multiples, what their order as unit is. And using the scroll bar on the right here, you can actually scroll between your different suppliers. So if you're trying to have a look at what differences there are between your suppliers or who can supply the product, you can scroll through each of your suppliers here and have a quick look. You've got stock information, so you've got your stock area numbers, and these scroll down. For a lot of our retail environments, you may only have stock area number 1. Our wholesale environments do tend to have more stock areas than our retail. So you get your stock area, what your stock on hand is for that stock area, transient units. If you're using forward charge invoices in our invoicing system, the transient units will take into account your forward charged invoice units. Unprinted invoice stock on hand. So again, if you've got something that is counting towards your unprinted invoices, like a picking slip, or you can have yard orders depending on your configuration, that'll show you what's in your unprinted. Your committed stock on hand is anything you've got on back order at the moment. So if a customer has an invoice and you've got it as a back order, it will show there. And it will then give you a free stock on hand. So we can see here that we should have this stock on hand, this stock on hand, the 1782, and we should have 1685 of those as free stock. And then we get the stock location that the product has been put on. Down the bottom here, we get all of the barcodes that the product has configured. So we can scroll through and we can see if there's any alternative barcodes or what other level barcodes are available. We can see the packaging details, how many inners to the outer to the shipper to the layer, layers to the pallet, if your product has more than one quantity level in it. We can also then have a look at your total stock on order and total quantity on back order with that you've got back ordered. So this total stock on order can help you that if you've got a customer who's asking about wanting to have something like wanting to buy a certain amount and you don't have enough, you can have a look here and see how many you have on order. That, combined with the next shipping date and further shipping dates, can assist you in being able to tell whether the product is due in soon, how much should be coming in, to be able to help with filling a customer's order. So if you've got a low stock on hand or low free stock, you can see that the quantity on order would be more than enough to fill a customer's request, and the shipping date might be in a day or two. Can help with being able to tell your customers about that, so that they know that if they place an order now, there should be enough stock coming in shortly to be able to fill their order. So this screen sort of helps show the status of a product's stock without needing to go in and sort of doing too much with it. So this screen, as I said, we can see what our current stock holding is, both the total stock on hand and the free stock. We can see when a delivery is due of additional stock, if there is any extra due, and if there is, what the quantity that we have on order is at the moment. We can see how a product is packaged. And this is information that, as I said, can be very useful when you're trying to talk to a customer about a product. And it's nice that it can be seen in a single screen without having to click through different buttons to be able to see that. So the next screen we're going to have a look at is the product inquiry screen. This is another way to look at details of a product or products, whereas the stock inquiry is focused towards what products do I have on hand. The product inquiry is a bit more of a holistic, give me details about the product and the sales history of the product. So this product inquiry can be useful for like ordering, your ordering staff or people who deal with looking at the products themselves or your stock file itself, and wanting to get a bit more of an idea of being able to click through and see different products and how they have sort of been worked within the system. So there's two versions of the product inquiry screen. There's a shop talk and trade talk version, depending on which version of our software you're running. Generally, if you're a retailer, you'll be running our shop talk. If you're a wholesaler, you'll be running our trade talk. I am going to cover both versions of this utility today. So I'm going to open up the shop talk one. So with shop talk, there's a couple of with the product inquiry, there's a couple of ways of looking up a product. You can just do a search down the bottom here with a product code, a barcode. You can do a question mark search for a product just like you would normally, and it'll bring up details of that product. Alternatively, product inquiry actually gives you an ability to drill down and look at a little bit more than just a single product at a time. You can actually go through and do searches for groups of products. So, for example, we might decide to have a look at products from supplier number 10950, and we might decide that we want to look at the ones that are confectionery, drink in group 1, and we can click find. And what this will do now is, rather than just returning the single product that we had, this will return all of the products that meet those qualifications. So you see here that the product, they're all that one. What we could do, if we cleared that, we could have just said, give me everything that was in that group, and then it'll find other suppliers. We could have just said, give me everything from that supplier, including other groups. So this is just different ways of being able to get up groups of products that you have a way of being able to look at. You can even do other things. You can use things like established dates. We can say, right, show us everything that was established on that date. So it's a really powerful tool once you start looking into alternatives of how to use it. So the information that's displayed on this screen, you've got our product number, description, division group and subgroup, our product price group, the stock area 1 first stock location. We then see some supplier information where we can actually see our primary supplier number, name and SKU, as well as one of our secondary supplier number, name and SKUs. Up in our general information, we can see established dates and last sale dates, our stock on hand for stock area 1, our stock on order for stock area 1, out of stock reason. So the out of stock reasons come about based off your stock receipting. Out of stock is the default mode, where if you have stock on hand, it'll just be saying that. It's out of stock is designed that if your stock on hand gets to 0 and you have not ordered anymore, your out of stock reason will be out of stock. You've just run out. If you have ordered stock and it's past the expected delivery date and hasn't been stock receipted, the out of stock reason will go down to supplier late. If you've received some stock but it was short supplied and not all stock was received, it will be set to short supplied, or supplier short, sorry. So they're just ways of being able to have a look. If you have got 0 stock on hand, you can have a bit of a quick look and see potentially why do you have 0 stock on hand. Was it a supplier issue or was it an ordering issue? You also have your stock area 1 minimum and maximum order levels, your product's actual cost. So this is one of the screens where you can actually see a product cost without having to drill into product maintenance. You've then got the manufacturer SKU, the primary APN being your primary barcode. Down in the bottom here, this is where the information can come very handy for purchasing staff, or for people who may be looking, like if you've got someone who's trying to do a bigger sale, where they can actually drill in and have a look at, hey, what units have I sold this month to date, year to date, last year total life? What are my sales dollars? What are my cost dollars? So here we can see, well, look, this product's not very good. We haven't got a huge total life markup. The cost year to date, I've spent $40, but I've only sold $12.21 in one unit. Well, do I really want to be ordering more of that or not? It's the type of information and the type of combination of information that can help you make decisions. You then have your price down in the bottom right, where you can see the number of price codes you have configured. Most of our retailers will only have 3. The price you have there, the price inc, quantity breaks for price code 1, 2, and 3, and what markup is configured. So we're going to have a quick look at the Trade Talk version now. As I said, it's a very similar screen. On this screen, you'll notice things are laid out slightly differently because it's more focused towards what a wholesaler would need rather than a retailer. Again, we've got our product number, description, division group, subgroup. We have a product price group and a product promo group this time available. The stock area 1 location, our primary supplier details only this time. We then have our barcode details, our unit, so inner, outer shipper barcodes, the manufacturer SKU. Again, we can see an established date and a last sale date, a sold as units and an order as units now, so that you can see what are we buying it, what are we selling it as, what your stock area 1 stock on hand and stock on order is, inners to outer to shipper, shipper to layer and such, minimum and maximum order levels. You again have your prices here, except this time you've got more prices because our wholesalers do tend to have a larger price ranges. And then your same month to date, year to date, life total here. Now, where product inquiry starts becoming extra useful, more than it already is in the buttons that you have at the bottom here. HN is a hide notes button. So if you've got a set of products that have a number of notes that pop up, using the HN will actually prevent that note popping up. So that way you can stop the notes popping up each time. You can click the notes button to get that to pop up if you need it. So that's the notes and the hide notes. You've got your cancel, your find, and your quit, which are fairly standard ACR ones. Sequence. Sequence gets used if you are going to use a search button, but you need to use sequence before you click the find button. So if you're going to do a search that may return a number of results and you want them sorted by the product number, the product description, the location, or the supplier, when that information gets brought up on screen, then you need to have selected sequence before you do a search. If, however, you've brought information up as we have at the moment here, you can use the sort list to actually then sort the information. So we can go through and we can actually sort by established date. So we see down the bottom left here, it says the new sort field will be the established date. Everything will now be sorted when I click the sort list button. Everything will now be sorted by that established date. So we get it now in that established date order. Now that we have product number, if I click sort list, it will actually sort it by that product number. So now they're in product number description. Product number order, sorry. We can use the product description the same way. Load all the load all button works in conjunction with the sort list button. If in ACR you bring up a large list of products such as this, where the scroll bar is longer than a page worth, using the load all will actually bring everything up and load it into the product inquiry to make using the scroll bar a little bit easier. It will actually preload everything into the system and allow the scroll bar to scroll the full length up and down, rather than it sort of jumping as it typically does in ACR when you're scrolling. So it's just something to be aware of. But the sort list is a very key one to be able to go through and just be able to sort these products in any way you want while you're looking through the lists. Now that's it for the screens about looking at how to look up information. As you can see, there's a couple there that potentially can be quite useful in ways of looking up screens. Now, the question comes down, what happens when you actually want to make adjustments to screens or to products? Here we can open up, and we'll start with doing stock adjustments, and we can have a look at the stock adjustment screen. This screen is the same screen that can be accessed from within product maintenance by clicking on stock area and clicking stock adjustments. The primary difference between the two is, from the product maintenance screen, it is expecting you to just work on that one product only, and you have to go back out, search another product, come back in to make your second adjustment. Working directly from the stock adjustment screen, if you have a small number like 3 or 4 products, this may be up to 10 or 15 that you want to make an adjustment on, not enough to do something like using stock take system to do it. This allows you to go through and actually enter the stock adjustments directly one after the other for each product. So the way this works, first, your type, is it a transfer between stock areas or an adjustment? We're focusing on the adjustments today. Notes, do you want to add any notes on this adjustment about why it's being adjusted? Have you done a count? Have you noticed something's happened with stock and you've had to write certain stock off? It can all be entered here for you. Stock area that you wish to affect. Generally for our retailers, as I said, everything is stock area 1, but this will let you actually do stock adjustments for more than just stock area 1. Now, if you had this set as a transfer, it will actually ask you what stock area are you transferring from and what stock area are you transferring into. So this can be used if you have more than one stock area and you want to move stock from one stock area to another quickly and easily. We'll leave it on the adjust. So stock area. Next, it asks us for our product ID, and that will fill out our product description and also give us our current stock on hand. Now, we have 2 ways we can make an adjustment here. One is we can use the adjustment field, where we will enter in there what adjustment we want to make. So if I needed to, that current stock on hand, if I had looked at it and realized that maybe 10 of them had been damaged and I needed to do an adjustment for 10, I can put in there -10, and that will adjust the current stock on hand by 10. Alternatively, if I had done a count of it and decided that there was only 1,500 for argument's sake, I can put the adjusted stock on hand and type 1,500, and the system will work out what adjustment needs to be made to change the current stock on hand to be the adjusted stock on hand. So just to recap on those, adjustment, you enter the adjustment you want to make and then have the system do that. Adjusted stock on hand, you enter the new stock on hand quantity you wish to have the system set to and let the system work out what the adjustment needs to be done. Either way, once you enter in the adjustment that you wish to happen, you simply just press the enter key and the system will process that adjustment. Now if we go in there and have a look at it, and we brought up that same product, we'll notice that the current stock on hand now is 1,500. If I went in here and now typed in 200 and enter, and check it again, you'll notice it's now gone back up to 1,700. Because this first time I told it I want to replace the stock on hand with 1,500. So it worked out what adjustment needed to be done and put that and got the stock on hand to where I asked for it to be. This time I told it what adjustment to do. It worked out what the new adjustment would be and made the stock on hand what I've asked it to be. And as you can see here, just going down, it allows you to go through and you can type in basically any product that you want. You can find any product that you need and work out what you want to do as your stock on hand, enter. And it'll let you just key in one stock adjustment after the other until you've done them all. A stock adjustment serial track is effectively the same program. The difference for this screen is that it has the serial numbers button. So if we come through here and we say, right, we're going to make an adjustment of -2. You notice now I've tabbed off that. It's actually gone to the serial numbers button. And it will now actually ask me to enter the serial number that I want to work on. And because it's expecting 2 of them, I need to enter in 2. And when I'm done, I can click OK and process. And that's now adjusted it down to 7. So with the serial adjustments, this relates mainly to fully tracked items, where the system needs to know which serial number you're introducing or which serial number you're removing when you're adjusting it. Using the stock adjustment serial track will allow you to make those adjustments. You cannot do those directly through stock adjustments because the system won't know which serial number you're working on. Okay. Now that we've had a look at how to adjust how to do stock adjustments, the next thing we're going to have a look at is cost adjustments. Sort of seems like the next logical step. If you've done stock adjustments, what about cost adjustments? As you can see, the cost adjustment screen looks fairly similar. Again, you can access the cost adjustment screen directly from product maintenance by clicking on the cost button, then the cost adjustment button, but that will only allow you to adjust the cost on a product at a time. If for some reason you've got a couple of products you need to enter a cost adjustment on, this will allow you to actually go through and enter that cost adjustment directly without having to keep going through the process of bring up a product, click cost adjustment, do the adjustment, close out of it, bring the next one up, open it back up. This will allow you just to go straight in and bring the product up. So what we have here is the product ID. We enter the product ID for the product, and that will fill in the actual cost, the total stock on hand for it, the product name at the top, freight. If there is a freight component already, it will be displayed here. If we need to add a freight component, we can add a freight component to it in here as well. So these are just ways of being able to affect the system if we need. So the two we have up here is new actual cost and new cost before freight. So the difference of the two is, well, if we've got 0 freight, they both become the same. If we have a freight component in, New actual cost is what cost after that freight component we want the product to have. New cost before freight is entering in a cost, adding the freight component on top to arrive at our new actual cost. So in this case, what we can do is we can say our new cost is 6, and that will prompt us with our normal price change screen. This is the same price change screen as we're used to seeing if we are doing something like stock receipting, for instance, where we can do our maintain prices, maintain markup. If you've got a price rounding set up, you can have the rounded price maintained. It displays an old cost and a new cost. Here, though, we don't have a leave cost option that you would normally have in stock receipting, because in here we are telling the system we want to change the cost, so that leave cost is no longer applicable. So we can click on OK to that, and it'll let us know if this is part of a compiled item. This way we know that, hey, there are compiled items that are going to be affected here. And if we need to, we can do something with that. Then once you've done, it'll bring it down, and it then shows it, gets us ready to do the next product that we want to do. Fairly nice and easy, not a lot to it, but if you've got a few products that maybe you've been notified by a supplier that a small group of products has got a price range coming on, you may only stock a half dozen or a dozen, and you may choose this will be the quickest way to enter in those new costs to get them in your system and to get the details updated as quickly as possible. Okay, what we're going to have a look at now is the next cost/price manipulator. Now, there is quite a bit to the next cost manipulator. We are not going to cover all of it in this webinar. We're going to focus primarily on using the exporting and importing utility, as they are ways of being able to do bulk cost changes really quickly within the system, without having to worry about doing a whole lot of other stuff and how it's affected. So what we're going to look at first is export cost/prices. This screen gives us an ability to go through and say, hey, where do we want to actually output this to? We'll give it a set. Do we want our prices exclusive or inclusive? Then we can go through and we can set, do we want to do only a certain product range? So we can set just say a range of products. We could do a product group, a subgroup, a supplier, a specific stock location, whatever we want to do. So I'm going to set done to that. So that will now actually output that information. What we can then do is open up our chosen method of editing it. In this case, I'm going to open up Excel and have a look at it in Excel. So in Excel, we can browse, we can set all files, locate the webinar file, well, in this case, webinar test file we created. This is a tab delimited text file, so we want delimited, we want tab. I would recommend in here that things like the general or the product ID gets set to text in case you have leading zeros. Manufacturer SKU gets set to 0 in case you have leading zeros. Barcode to be set to text because Excel doesn't like barcodes. They do scientific notation. That can sometimes cause problems. So once we've set the few that we want to text, we can click Finish. And what we end up with is a file that gives us quite a bit of information. Now, one key thing is when we're working on this file is to not delete any of the columns. When we want to re-import something back in, ACR needs those columns in the correct order for it to be able to re-import the file back in. So if we want to just change cost, the simplest way to do that is just to come in here and edit the costs directly on the product. So here we'll change it to 10, 10, and 50. This does also allow you to go through and update the prices if you wish. Now, when you import this, this will utilize the information that's in here. So if you update the cost, it will also look at what price is in here to load that as the price to use at the same time. So if you're going to go through and do a bulk update on costs using this method, it is worth taking the time to also update your prices to correspond with it. So when we're done, we've gone through, we've edited our things, and what we can turn around and do is sit and we can actually correct our prices. And we'll resave that file to exactly what it was before. And we can close that down. This time when we're in ACR, so what we've done now is we've exported it, we've edited it in our chosen method of editing it, we can now import it into ACR. So it's asked us where we want to pick it up from. We'll grab it from where we've saved it. And what we can see here is it's now given us what our current, what our next costs, and what our prices are going to be. Down the bottom, it's asking us for a next price date and next price reference. They become very critical because they can be used to actually activate these cost changes when they are ready to happen. Next price, next cost manipulator does not go through and make the change at the time that you are loading this in. It preloads this in, ready for you to activate it when you're ready. The system won't automatically activate it when that date comes around. You do need to activate it, but it allows you to preload this stuff in as far ahead of time as you need to make activating it as simple as possible on the day. So what we'll do, we'll say, yep, we want to activate it on the 5th of May, and we'll give it a reference. This just helps that if you have more than one lot of information on a certain date, you can actually have a reference there to go through and be able to activate stuff just based off a certain date and reference, or just a date, just a reference. So putting both of those bits of information in is useful. So what we're going to see here is we're going to go, we've got our current cost and our next cost. We've got a next date of the 5th with a reference. We're going to hit update. Yep, we'll go through. So now if we go back and have a quick look at our product that we were just working on, what we will notice is that we have next prices loaded in. We have a next price date that we set. We have a next price reference. In the cost, we have a next cost loaded as well. So basically the system has loaded that information in now, ready for us to activate it when we need to. Now, the way the next cost works is that it will always use the last next date, next cost, next price, next reference. It will only save that last one that was entered in on a product. So if you enter one in and then tomorrow come and re-enter a new one in, it will override yesterday's one with the new one. You can't have more than one lot loaded in, waiting to go. So once you're actually ready for the system to do the update, what you can do is you come into next price, activate next cost margins, and what you'll see is it's saying that we've got 275 products that have a next price or next cost loaded. We only were working on 3 of them, so it tells me that we had quite a number in here that someone else has worked on. So I can either qualify just products, just a group and subgroup, a supplier, a location. We can use a next price from and to, so we can either enter in the same date on both or enter in a date range. We've got the next price reference, where utilizing both the date and the reference, we can narrow it down to say only the products we want are going to actually be updated, and we can hit process. So it gives you the thing basically warning you about if a field is blank, it'll leave the prospective field unchanged. If the field has a 0, it'll replace that value with a 0. Do you want to continue? Okay. And it's giving us the warning that the product that we were working on is in a compiled item. Okay. Another one is in a compiled item as well. Okay. And allows us to print the log. This log just lets us see what was changed at this time. So now if we go back to that product and have a look at it, we'll see that there's no next date, next reference. The next price has been cleared, and the cost that we had in our next cost has been moved into our cost now. So that is as difficult as it is to use next price to go through and do bulk updates. It is almost certainly going to take you longer to actually update the Excel sheet with the details than it is to actually go through and load the changes into ACR. So we've now had a look at a few of the methods of looking up information within ACR. We've also had a look at ways of adjusting the stock and the stock holding levels within ACR. Some of these ways you may not have been familiar with, some of them you may have. I hope the information provided you at least some ideas on how to better utilize the ACR system, and maybe better ways, some other ways of being able to get information out and utilize information from within ACR. So we're going to have a look here. We've got some helpful hints. The stock inquiry and the product inquiry are great ways of looking up information without your staff being able to change it. So if you've been looking for a way to be able to give your staff a way to look up that information, but you don't want them in the product inquiry screen, the product maintenance screen, sorry. So if you want them to be able to look up the information but not get into product maintenance, stock inquiry or product inquiry may be the ideal way for them to get in there and see it, as well as they may be an ideal second screen for some point of sale operators to have open as a way of being able to look up information on stock levels or product details for customers that they may ask. The stock and cost adjustment screens can either be accessed through product maintenance for a specific product at a time, or individually as we were looking at it today. The next price cost manipulator can be used to load bulk changes for costs into the ACR system, as we had a look through. Thank you very much for joining us today. I do hope that you've gotten something out of today's webinar and that it maybe has given you some ideas on new screens to have a look at and maybe new ways to utilize ACR within your business that may help your staff when they're working within ACR. If you have any further questions, if you want any more information on anything that you've seen today or in general, don't forget to contact the training team at ACR. You can contact them either via email at training@acr.com.au or on the phone number provided on screen, and they'll be more than happy to help you out in any way they can. So all that I've got left to say is thank you again for attending our webinar, and I hope to see you next time. Thank you.